Today I am recreating an original meat recipe from 1717. I am using the historical methods that were used back then. And afterwards I will taste and rate this meat here in this video. It all starts with the idea of reawakening a forgotten taste. I start by searching for the right recipe and decided on a recipe from 717 from the cookbook The Accomplishment Housekeeper and Universal Cook, one of the most popular cookbooks of the time. There are two sections of our recipe. I will read the first part first and then I will put this into practice before we get to the second part. Mead wine. There are being several sorts of mead wines. It will be necessary to mention 3 of them separately. We will be looking at the first of the 3 today. White or suck meat is made in the following manner. Put a gallon of the best honey to every 5 gallons of water. Set it on fire and boil it well, 1 hour, remembering to skim it well. That is exactly what we're doing now. Here's our pot, which should hold exactly a half of the recipe. So we simply divide the recipe by 2 and take the half of everything. Plus a matching fermentation container of the time, which I will talk more about later. And the best honey. I have here fresh forest honey directly from the local beekeeper. I assume that is roughly equivalent to the best honey. It is very strong honey and spices are also ready for later. Today we are working with a volume machinery, which is very uncommon for a European, but this is how it is in the recipe. So let us do the same way. This cup here is from the Purzelbaum. This is a play on the words in German and means somersault. In the same manner it means like a tree that somersaults over the top by himself. Zum Purzelbaum belongs to the channel. More about this in another video. The cup holds a quarter gallon and I will now dump 10 of them into the pot. Some of the water is already in, but I would like to add the honey first before I finish the water. I have already measured the honey and then I weighed it. For those who are interested, it is about 105 ounces or 6.6 pounds of honey to about 9.5 liters of water. I take out every drop of honey and with a spoon I can scrape it out a bit so that the honey loose minimized. The pot is full. Both the honey and the water are in it, and I was really lucky that it fits. It shouldn't have been any more. We will now boil it up. I proceed as follows for the fire. I take some wood, some coal and some straw and light it. The wood burns a little bit better in the beginning, but later the coal provides a constant temperature. That is why I only add coal later on. This allows me to control an even temperature for the large boiler. Parallel to the fire, which is now slowly getting bigger and slowly bringing the kettle up to temperature, we are already working on the other step that will be neat when it is finished. The first step. The recipe says so. Then take it off the fire and set it by to cool. Take 2 or 3 raisins of ginger, a stick of cinnamon and 2 nutmegs. Puree these a little, put them into a Holland bag and let them stand in the hot liquor till it is nearly cold. I have already prepared a large piece of ginger and the other spices. And the Holland bag is a bag that we can close well so that we can easily get the spices out again. This bag should stay in the meat for the whole time it is cooling. And because we only using the half of the recipe, we only use the half of the spices. Now the first patient time of the recipe begins, because we have our kettle here, which is heat slowly. And it will slowly start to form, but it still doesn't boil. And we keeping stirring it slowly and constantly, so that it doesn't burn. The meat is finally boiling, as you can see. Now I can slowly skim off the foam while stirring the meat. It should now boil for the total of 1 hour, which I will do now. I will measure this with a normal modern clock. Do you have any ideas on how people used measuring times in the 18th and 19th century, especially in the early American frontiers time when they are cooking and baking? Write them in the comments, then I will see what can I recreate and try out and show you on this YouTube channel. And I can also use this method for other videos in the future, when I try out other recipes from the time of the American frontiers and settlers, so that you not only get recipes from this time, but really the entire tools, including time measurements as it took place then. It has now cooked on the fire for 1 hour and I can take it down. I use thick cloths because of the heat. I put it on the table and make sure that the kettle is really on the stone slabs, which I have prepared for this, because I don't want to damage the table. Now I take the spice bag and throw it in the meat. It is the one I have just put together exactly I have shown, and press it down with a wood spoon, so that it is really in the meat from all sides. Now the bag can stay in the meat until everything is cooled down, just like in the recipe says. What I find amazing is how much water is evaporated on 1 hour of cooking. That must be 4 or more liters of water, or in American system more than 1 gallon of water. I didn't expect this much, more like a liter. And so the percentage of honey was increased again. That the honey content is now over 1/3 by weight of honey back in the meat. I was really surprised that there was so much strong outflow. And for anyone hearing it for the first time, there is a rule of the thumb when making meat. At least 1/3 must be honey. This is a basically common practice and has been since the time of the German tribes and the old Egyptians. Now we have fun with the yeast. It used to be something different. Either you had a fermentation in process and you took a part of it and used it, or you went to a local brewer and got a bottle of active yeast from him. But you most like brewer's yeast for this recipe. That reminds me, I would also like to brew a beer from the 18th using the same methods. If you don't want to miss out something like this, you can now subscribe to this YouTube channel and support me with it. For the yeast I now use this mug here with exactly 28.2 degrees Celsius warm water in it. That's because there are different ale yeast. I'm testing a lot of different yeast and I'm hoping this one might be a good replacement for the one of the historical yeasts. However, you could also use any other brewer yeast if you want to recreate this recipe. And this special yeast needs to be activated at a certain temperature. I have already used some of this yeast, but also I have saved a little bit of this yeast for another batch. Now I carefully press this yeast underwater so that it's activated more quickly. And then I leave the yeast to stand alone for at least a half an hour. You can take a look here. The yeast forms lumps, but this is normal. The yeast now does everything else itself. The yeast is ready and the meat is already cooled down very fast. It still needs to cool a little bit, but it can still do this in the fermenting vessel. I now read out the rest of the recipe. Then put as much ale yeast to it as will making it work. Keep it in a warm place as they do ale, and when it has worked well, put it in a cask that will just hold it. In 2 or 3 months you maybe bottle it off, cork it well and keep it for use. We have to do it now and pour the meat into the vessel. Then it can continue to cool down in there, which can take another 1 or 2 hours, until the yeast and the meat have reached the same temperature. The spices remain in the pot and are not transferred. Oh, you see this beautiful color? I'm going to pour it out here, bit by bit. Today I ferment this meat in a barrel made of clay. There were actually 3 typical methods. Each also affects the taste differently. Either a wood barrel, which I show in one of the next videos, or a glass barrel, or like here in a clay jug. Clay was the most widely used because it was cheap, available everywhere and quick to produce. And I had this one specially made by a potter, according to the examples of the time, so that we can use it here. We are about to start the tasting, but first the meat has to ferment. To do this, I put it in a corner where it can stay for a long time without being moved and where we have constant temperatures over the whole time. And now this is incredible here, the whole room smells of forest honey. The yeast is now here and has formed small bubbles, which shows it is now active. It is all in here now. That's enough and nothing more needs to be done. The batch is now sealed. The lid now had a special feature. It fits exactly into the hello and I can now drop water into it so that it's sealed and the resulting CO2 can escape, but nothing can penetrate the meat. Before I can start tasting the finished meat, I had to shake the water level every day until the meat was ready. Because the water evaporates very quickly from this water spare, I had to refill almost daily for a month. The meat is ready and I can talk a little bit about the taste, and I want to describe it so good I can for you, how it tastes. This is a really incredible meat. In the end I had a few bottles and I think it's the 3rd bottle now that I'm drinking from this, and I can now talk and describe a little bit this meat. About the fermenting, I never will use this fermenting vessel again. I had a big problem with them. I need to put water on the top every 1 or 2 days. It is too much. And I will find another solution for the future, or I ferment in wood. That's also what I do. And yes, let's open the bottle. It's incredible meat. I produced over 150 meats in my life now, and this is really different, like every modern recipe. Here again a little cup with a Purzelbaum on top. I have let it produce for me. If you want to drink meat like an expert, it's very easy. you divided it by smelling, tasting in the mouth, and what is after, what is the feelings about this. And with this you can describe a mead very good. This is what I try to do. It is like the forest honey is very incredible strong, but also to have like a little bit sour in the smelling, and a lot of herbs. I can't describe it so easily. It is like really herb-full smelling, and it's very interesting, and also a lot of sweetness. Let's taste. This meat is incredible. Every time I taste it, it is sweet. And the first thing, it is more like a little bit like a beer. It is like honey, sweet. It's oily. The feeling in the mouth is oily, but also it is soft, smooth to drink, and then this taste of sweetness and a little bit sour. I think it came maybe from the ingwer, and I can't really say I find the nutmeg and the cinnamon in this taste, but it's also very special. And one big taste is like a note like beer. I think this is from the yeast. This is really, really an interesting taste. And this is so different like everything else I ever produced in my fermenting career. And if I get ever the chance to make this mead again, I will take the same recipe. In the future I want to do other recipes of this time period, but this is a really, really interesting, incredible mead. And I have another really interesting recipe. The video is here. It is about the Germans have made a fruit pudding in the time they're crossing the states to find their destination, the land where they want to live. It's a very good video. See you soon.